after that 90-day window, and guess what? You don't make a dime. If it happens after this window, this option is expired and it's worth a big fat zero. Okay? So as a buyer, again, we've got to be right about three things: which way the market's going, how far the market's going, and how fast it's going to get there. We've got to have those three things correct to make money as a buyer. It's like we all, you hear about the hurricane season every year, right? So let's just say there is a hurricane over off the coast of Africa. It's moving across the Atlantic Ocean. It's a couple of weeks from getting to the United States. And if you're a buyer, if you're kind of the analogy, if you're a meteorologist who's like a buyer, you have to say, after traveling all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, this hurricane is going to hit at Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be a level 4 hurricane, and it's going to get here on this date at this time. I mean, you literally have to be that correct to make money as a buyer. Now, what if you're a seller? Remember I said all the exchange does is bring a buyer and a seller together. Okay? So for every person who wants to buy an option, there has to be somebody that wants to sell them that option. Okay? Just makes sense, right? You got to have a buyer and a seller for every transaction. Okay? So this is the buyer. He's got to be right about all these things, plus he's taking $450 out of his pocket to do this trade. Well, if I want to sell that option to him, I can do that. Okay? And all it is, and I don't have to own anything. I don't have to own Tesla. I don't have to own anything. All I have to do is say, I want to sell this option. Now, you have to have some money in your account. They won't let you do it if you don't have an account open and have some money in your account. But you just say, okay, I think a 600 call is a good trade for me to sell because I don't think it's getting to 600. It might go up a little bit. It might not, but I might be wrong. It might fly through 600, but I think that's a safe bet, and I'm going to sell that. Well, this $450 that the buyer pays, it comes down here, and I collect that money on the day the trade is put in. The day that this trade is consummated at the exchange, the buyer's paying $450, I'm receiving $450 in my account. I mean, like that. You have money in your account. All right. Now, go back to the meteorologist example. The buyer, he has to pinpoint where that hurricane is going to hit, how strong it's going to be, what time it's going to get there, everything. He's going to be right about all sorts of stuff. Me, I just have to find a spot on the whole eastern seaboard of the United States and say it's probably not going to hit here. So I might pick Bangor, Maine, and say, I don't think it's going to hit there. If for him to make money, he's got to be dead on right. It's got to hit Jacksonville, be that strong, but on that date, and he makes money. I say Bangor, Maine. I don't think it's going to hit Bangor, Maine. As long as it doesn't hit, I don't care where it hits. As long as it doesn't hit Bangor, Maine, I keep this $450. And I just keep it. So I don't have to be right. I just can't be completely wrong. That's the only criteria for me as a seller, is I can't be completely wrong. I could, we talked about it hitting Jacksonville. I could even say St. Augustine, which isn't that far away. But if it doesn't hit St. Augustine, I still keep my money. Okay? So you hear all these stories a lot of times. Well, I bought Tesla. I bought an option for $450. That thing went up, and I made $12,000. Okay, you hear that every so often. You'll hear somebody saying that, and people are like, their eyes bug out. Oh my gosh, you only had to pay $450 and you made $12,000? That's amazing, right? But you got to ask yourself, how often does that happen? How often do those types of stories take place? We hear about them, but how often does it really happen? And the statistically, 80 to 85% of all options that are written, which are, buyer and seller that are on the exchange, 80 to 85% of them expire worthless. They don't get anywhere near where the strike price is. So they expire worthless. The buyer, the big push they have for buyers is, look, this is all you're risking. You can never lose more than $450. That's all you don't have any more risk. This guy, on the other hand, theoretically, we are assuming that risk. So we have, and this is a scary word. They say this, and I'll explain it in a second. They say, ooh, that seller has unlimited risk. That scares most people out of doing what we do. Okay? And theoretically, that's right. If we were to put this trade on as a seller and never look at it again, take a cruise around the world, never open our phone, never see what's going on in the market, and Tesla blew through the roof and went way up, yeah, we would have a heck of a big loss on our hands. Okay? But, if you put a trade on, you don't do that. You make sure that you watch and see what's going on with your trade. We set a particular point at which we will get out of the trade. So we're going to risk it to this point and no bar. If the price does go against us, it moves to that point, we just buy it back. We entered the trade by selling it. We get out of the trade by buying it back. Okay? We can get out at any time. I could put it on at 9 in the morning and buy it back at 9:01 if I want to. Okay? You can buy it back any time in that 90 days. But the problem, so two things. Boy, this is getting messy.
Need different color.
Flip it over.
So you have the possibility and you have probability. Yeah, I'm not a teacher, I can't spell.
You need the POSSI.
So with a buyer, I have a possibility that price could go shooting through the moon and I could make a lot of money. It's possible. How many times is it going to happen? Probably not that many, right? If this is statistically accurate, and it is, that 80 to 85% of the time, the option is going to get all the way out here to expiration, and it's not going to hit that strike price, and it's going to expire worthless. So while he has a possibility of making these huge gains, it's going to happen a very, very small percentage of the time. And even though that's all he can lose, he's going to lose that $450. For every 10 trades, he's going to maybe make a little money on 2. And chances are it's not going to be a huge thing. But if this price were to continue up, time value is eating against it, but it is moving closer. If you can get out of that trade with $600, $800, that's probably on average what you're going to do when you win, which is only 2 out of 10 times statistically. Okay? But for the other 8, you're losing that. So even though you're limited in what you can lose, you're going to lose it 8 out of 10 times, more than likely. Conversely, we have probability on our side. Okay? You go into any city in the United States, and the big skyscrapers are owned by insurance companies. They're the wealthiest companies in the world. And what do? They just take life insurance. Term life insurance policy is exactly like what we do as a seller. They sell you a 10-year policy. You pay them a premium every month. If you don't die in that 10 years, good for you, except good for the insurance company too, because they've collected all that premium and never had to pay anything out. Every so often, somebody will die. They will have to pay a claim out. But statistically, they know that that's a very, very small percent of the time, and they're going to collect premiums from all of these people. Okay? So we don't have these buy for $450, sell for $12,000. We don't have those. But what we do have is we put money in our account every time we put a trade on, whether that's every day, every week, whatever it is, we're putting money into our account, and it just accumulates. So if when you hit this and you're right, you hit a home run, we're hitting singles, maybe doubles. That's it. But we're consistent. The money's flowing in, the money's coming in, and 80 to 85% of the time we're keeping that money. Okay.
So 80% of the time buyers are losing, 80% of the time sellers are winning.
Right. Now I know this is a mishmash of stuff up here.
So as a seller, I mean, you have calls and puts.
Right.
So put would be the opposite, but it's not,
Down here.
okay, a buyer is not a call person.
No, a buyer can buy either a call or a put. And I'll give you some definitions here. There's two kinds of options. Okay, so there's a call option, which means if you're a buyer, you think the price is going up. If you think the price is going to fall, you can buy a put option. If I bought a put option down here, then it would just be the opposite. If the price moves down, that option is going up in value. If the price stays the same or goes up a little bit, this option is falling in value. Okay, so you do have to call your direction right as you're putting the trade on. And the easy way to remember that is you can call somebody up or you can put somebody down. So that's how that works. Okay, you can do either or both. Doesn't matter.
Is there a strike price on all the stocks that you buy? Do you have a personal goal with strike price, or is it already set in place?
Well, what'll happen is, and when you have when you're trading,
Mm-hmm.
you'll click on Tesla,
Mhm.
and you'll click on this time frame, and then it'll give you what they call an option matrix. It'll list all the options that are available on Tesla at 90 days out, and it'll show you calls and puts. So you can buy them or you can sell them right off of this matrix.
Okay.
Yeah, and you just choose. You know where the price is today. You can look at the chart and you can, there's different ways to kind of determine, do we think the price is going to go up or the price is going to go down? But in reality, you could literally, I'm not saying to do this, and we don't do this, but you could literally close your eyes and throw a dart at a board and get a strike price somewhere out of the money, and you still have an 80 to 85% chance of winning the trade. On the way that we do it, with the things that we look at and how we do it and where we position ourselves and everything else, we're sitting around 91% of the time we win the trade. So it's, again, we're not making a lot. This isn't sexy. This isn't, it's not like I hit the jackpot. It's just consistent. It's just, it's amazing. And we won't get into it today, but I'll show you in my account. Like right now in crude oil, in my account, I'm in crude oil, gold, silver, and treasury bonds. Got 4 markets I'm trading right now. Sometimes I trade grains, sometimes I trade live cattle. There's all different ones, but those are what I'm in. In crude oil right now, I've got probably, I'd have to count them up, but probably I've got all kinds of strike prices. Puts and calls that I've sold in crude oil. I've collected, I looked at it this morning, I've collected 19,000 and change on all these that I've sold that are right now open in my account. I have them at different time frames. So I may have some that are expiring 10 days from now. Now I put them on when there's 90 days, but their times tick by. So I might have some about 10 days. I got some about 30 some odd days. I got some about 60 days and some in the 90-day range. Okay, and all these options. And because the market hasn't had a dramatic move, it's just kind of moving along, comes up, goes down, does this sort of thing. my profit right now, or my P&L, I'm up about 16,000 on that 19,000 in the profit right now. And like I said, I got those expiring at different times. So, I mean, we've been able to put that amount of money just like this, selling an option. People buy the option, they put the money in our account. If I had to buy them all back today, they're only worth about $3,000. If I had to buy them all back today, I could do it for about $3,000 and I'd have a profit of $16,000. So once you get your account, you start building this, the amount of money that you can generate is substantial. It takes some time. You know, this isn't like get rich quick. I mean, you have to follow the rules. You know, we have rules for getting out when things are going bad. We have, you know, where do we get in? We've got very specific rules and all this stuff that we'll teach you. But the bottom line is, it's because the probabilities are so high, we're just putting a little bit of money in our account all the time. Every so often, one's going to get to me, and we buy that one back, get rid of it. And I lose a little bit of money on that trade. Okay? So it works just like I said, just like insurance company. Okay. Any questions about this? I know this is dry. I know it's, you know, have a donut, it'll give you a little sugar.
Well, how much research do you do? You know, insurance companies, they you know, they're not gonna take a risk on somebody, or they're gonna make them pay really high premium if they're not well, you know, because they have a better chance of passing on. But, you know, as far as what's going on in the market, like you talk about hurricanes, you know, weather patterns, or political things happening, or whatever, that's influencing the market.
Absolutely.
How much of that do you do?
Well, so we look at price charts. We definitely do that. And then we also look at what's called fundamentals. So fundamentals are things you're talking about. So we look at soybeans. How much is left from last year's crop that's still yet to be sold? How many acres of soybeans are planted? Now, we don't have to go in and figure all this stuff out, because there are what they call commentators. There's people in the market. There's people that specialize in soybeans. They know that market like the back of their hand. So I listen to them. They've got a, you know, they write articles, they make videos. I listen to those guys. Say, okay, you know soybeans much better than me. What's your opinion? What's going on in soybeans over the next couple months? They give you their opinion. Now, they're not always right. Nobody's ever always right. But it gives us an idea. It gives us an opinion where we can then say, yeah, it might go up a little bit. I don't think it's going up that far. I think that's a good, solid trade. Okay. So and we'll go through all this stuff, but just so you know, when we write, or another word for selling an option is writing. Just like you write an insurance policy, it's the same thing. When we do that, we don't ever do one. They have a statistical algorithm that examines all this data, and it says, what's the probability that this particular strike price is going to expire out of the money? And you can find that. It gives you a percentage what the probability is. So we sell options at a 93% or better or higher that it will expire out of the money. That's one of the things that we look at. So every option we put on has at least a 93% chance it's going to make money.
So that's your one rule?
No, there's several. That's one of them.
Okay.
There's several. I don't want to get into the weeds, but
okay.
We're just talking about kind of broad concepts here. All right. So what doesn't make sense? Don't say everything.
Well, it is kind of backwards, you know, like you were saying, from what you would normally expect, from the very little bit that I know about it. For me, it just, you know, I have to stop and look at it, you know, and I've certainly got a long way to go. But, it begins to make a little more sense if you can try to figure, like you're saying, you know, if you're a buyer, then you've got these three different, you know, categories you got to be right about every time.
Yeah.
Where on the seller side, you just have to be
Not-
semi-right,
Yeah.
you know.
Not totally wrong.
Well, that's probably why I could never make money doing any other kind of trading.
Yeah.
Because I can be kind of
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
right or wrong, but I'm never able to be, you know, exactly right. So you might ask yourself, well, why doesn't everybody do this? Right? Why are people doing this side? Well, it's because the way that, if you go online, you can look up option selling, option buying, you look all that stuff up. What you're gonna find is a huge bias pushing you towards the buyer side. Because they're gonna say things like limited risk. You can only lose what you pay for the option. Limited risk. Unlimited profit potential. You could make millions on that. Right? Will you? No, probably not. But this is the way they present it. Oh, these idiots over here on the seller side, they have very limited profit. That's all I can make on that trade is what the buyer paid. I can't make a penny more if the price goes my way. That's it. And conversely, theoretically, again, my risk is unlimited. If I was to put that trade on and never do another thing, never look at anything, and that price shot up, I would be in for a huge loss. No question about it. Who's gonna do that? You know what I mean? It's like we all encounter risk every time we step out the front door, or even in our house, for that matter, right? We all there's risks in our lives. You know, what's more unlimited than getting run over by a bus? That's pretty high risk. You're dead. That's it, right? But there's ways to mitigate that. We look both ways before we cross, right? There's ways to mitigate it, and the same thing here. And honestly, I'm cynical, but I think the reason this is much easier to learn, I will say. This is much easier to teach people how to do and much easier to learn, because it's just like all the other types of you're buying something and you're hoping it goes up in value. Everybody gets that. This is like Jason, it's backwards. People have to kind of wrap their heads around it. But this is where the professionals are. For all of these buyers coming into the market, somebody's got to sell them those options. You can't buy unless there's a seller. So somebody's got to be there to make that transaction happen. And 9 times out of 10, it's the big institutional traders, the big traders. They're doing this thing. And they want more buyers in the market to buy what they're selling. So that's maybe kind of cynical, but that's what I think is why this, if you look anything up online, I guarantee you will see a huge bias towards you need to be a buyer. Don't be a seller. It's too risky. Don't do it. This is where you need to be. But I mean, it just doesn't bear out. It's just not true. I mean, it is true that that's all you can lose, but you're going to lose that 8 to 9 out of 10 times. It's just the way it's going to happen. So it's 11:30. Let's take like a 5-minute break. Let your brains cool down a little bit. We're pumping a lot of crazy things in there. Stretch your legs a little bit. There's coffee, there's tea, there's water, there's stuff to eat over there.